what should be done?
I don't have all the facts, and I'm not in a position to, I'm outside of the government at this point, so it's not my decision what should be done.
Okay, but you admit that people were targeted, and you found out about that over a year ago. You knew that conservative groups were targeted.
No, over a year ago was informed that there was a list. I did not know the details. I didn't know the severity.
A list of people who are targeted. This is really hard for you to say. Everyone else is saying it, but you can't say that there were groups targeted.
As of May 2013, so sitting here today, I mean, you can call it what you want.
A year ago, you didn't know that groups were being targeted. Did Mr. Miller, your predecessor, did he know that groups were being targeted?
I can't tell you what he knew. I can tell you what he told me.
What did he tell you?
It's what I said, that he told me that there was a list, that the word Tea Party was on it. We didn't know what else.
And when did you know this? You knew this before the election.
What's that?
You knew this before the election.
Sometime in the spring of 2012.
Okay, that would be before the election, I believe. You did know there was an election going on that year.
Excuse me?
You did know there was a presidential election.
I'm aware that there was an election last
year. All right. Do you think that type of information could potentially harm the president in an election year? Did that cross your mind?
No, that did not cross my mind. I was the Commissioner of the Internal Revenue Service, and when I got a piece of information of concern, I viewed my obligation not to think about elections, but to think about, once information came to me, was it being handled properly? And as I've said before, I've been told that it had been stopped or was in the process of being stopped, and that
And as a good leader, that was good enough for you?
Excuse me?
As a good leader, that was good enough for you?
I feel very comfortable with my actions.
Wow. Okay. What about the credibility of the IRS moving forward with implementing the health care law? A year or so ago, you and I had a conversation in this room about the IRS's readiness to implement the health care law. You felt that even though it took 55 minutes for someone calling about a tax question to talk to a human being and get an answer, that you felt comfortable that we would be ready to implement this health care law. How do you feel about that today? I know this won't be your responsibility. Do you still think the IRS is ready and has the confidence of the American people to share their most personal information with them to go ahead and implement the new health care law?
I think a couple things. I think, one, the last couple of years, Congress has not been funding the IRS sufficiently. And, I would defer to the Inspector General, who's done some looks at least when I left, had been looking at, is the IRS ready to implement its portion of the Affordable Care Act?
Are they competent to do it? Are they trustworthy enough? This is personal information people are going to have to share. I mean, we have to restore the confidence, and we don't even know what we're going to do in this case where our most basic freedom of speech has been violated. And you don't know whether anyone should go to jail. You don't know who should be held accountable.
I feel very confident in the men and women of the IRS to do the tasks they gave them. There was clearly a serious breakdown in this unit and in this topic here, and it's very serious, and the committee should be looking at it, et cetera. But I feel very confident in the capabilities of the IRS broadly and generally.
We'll see if America shares your views, and I yield back.
I think the gentleman.
And as insidious as it was stopped.
The Inspector General was going to be looking into it, and that's what.
Is it that you can't say yes or no, or you're just choosing not to say yes or no? Can you answer the question, did you do anything personally to make sure that this insidious, discriminatory practice was stopped? Yes or no?
At the time that I learned about it, I also learned two things. The first was that it was being stopped, and the second was that the Inspector
And what did you do to verify that it was stopped?
The responsible deputy of the Internal Revenue Service told me it was being stopped. I had no reason to believe otherwise.
Did you investigate why conservative groups were being targeted?
Excuse me?
Did you investigate? So you can't give me a single name. You can't answer the who. Can you tell me the why? Why were conservative groups? Why was the culture such under your watch that an employee felt comfortable targeting conservative groups? Did you investigate that?
From my reading of the report, I can't tell if it was political motivation or if it was tone deaf, somebody trying to expedite a way to
You still don't know that this was political.
Excuse me?
You still don't know that this was political?
I'd defer to the Inspector General.
Well, I'll tell you this, Mr. Shulman. Your predecessor said that he wasn't sure if it was partisan, and that requires the listener to be as stupid as the speaker to utter a comment like that. He just testified that policy positions dictated this. What does that mean to you? If it's not partisan, what does that mean?
I'm not sure I heard that testimony.
Well, we'll be sure and get you a copy of the transcript, and you can supplement your testimony. How's that? Do you agree with Dan Pfeiffer?
Committee's questions.
Do you agree with Dan Pfeiffer that the law is irrelevant, or do you think it is relevant?
I think the law is always relevant.
Do you think 26 U.S.C. 7214, which provides for criminal penalties for this conduct, would be relevant? And did you refer the matter to someone with law enforcement investigative jurisdiction?
I'm not going to speculate what's appropriate legally in this matter. And Mr. George, I knew his operation was looking at it, I believe.
I thought it was an audit. I thought he just testified it was an audit, not an investigation. Did you refer it for criminal investigation?
I didn't refer it. It was already being looked into at the time that it was brought to my attention.
So I want to be real clear because my time is out. The only recourse you have when there's an allegation of wrongful conduct on your watch, the only thing you feel comfortable doing is waiting on an inspector general to finish his or her report.
The general practice is to make sure the inspector general will look into it.
No matter how insidious the conduct. If it were an allegation of racial discrimination, you would have waited until Mr. George finished his investigation? Is that your testimony?
I'm really not going to answer hypotheticals.
I tell you what, instead of answering a hypothetical, why don't you answer the case at bar today? If there's an allegation that groups are being discriminated against based on political ideology, are you really going to wait until an inspector general finishes his or her report before you take corrective remedial action?
When I have a fact, but I don't have all the facts, and I don't know the scope and severity.
Did you investigate the facts, Mr. Shulman? Did you lift a finger to identify the facts?
Felt very comfortable. The facts, the Inspector General was going to run down the facts, and once he had it, it would be reported out.
Let the record reflect that's a no.
The IRS several times said today, I can't give you an answer to that. I have to go back and reference more information. We're not prepared to give you a definitive answer on that today. But you said in response to, can you give me assurances? Yes, I can give you assurances. I'm just wondering from what research did you arrive at that conclusion?
So I said targeting in the sense that 501c4 applicants did not need to apply. The ones that had applied had come in voluntarily. And my understanding was that there were questions being asked, that those questions were within the realm of authority of the IRS, and that those questions were not only being
understanding
asked.
that was your understanding.
That was my understanding.
And again, going on, you in fact made that testimony. You said further in your testimony, there is absolutely no targeting. This kind of back and forth happens when people apply for 501c4 status. Knowing now what you know about that back and forth, would that still be your testimony? There is no targeting. This is the kind of back and forth that happens?
In May 2013, sitting here before you today, I would have answered differently.
And that's my concern for folks. We saw a press conference.
Response was, and I believe it was one of your staff again, staff to staff, on May 10th also, the IRS issued a press statement without our knowledge, consent, or even advance notice. Are you familiar with this exchange?
I am not familiar with that exchange, sir.
Is it correct, though, that the IRS issued a press statement without our knowledge, consent, or even advance notice?
And I want to make sure that we have the dates correct. If this is the event in which Ms. Lerner gave a speech and responded to a question.
A planted question, yeah. We now know. So she created a press release by planting a question which she was prepared to answer, and there appears to be an audit trail of that plan.
I had absolutely no inkling that that was going to occur, sir.
I don't want you to overly go past the hypothetical, but release of this kind of information, advanced information, is in fact not legal, right, roughly? It may be criminal.
You know, I cannot give you a definitive answer there, sir, but I can say it has never happened before.
Okay. Will you agree to research this under your authority so that we may all know all of the details without us having to go and ask for those many papers that often take a long time to come?
Yes, but in all, let's see, yes, because she's within IRS, so we do have the authority to do so, yes.
Okay, I appreciate that. Yesterday I made, well, Ms. Loomis has arrived, so I'm going to cut short. I only have one quick question for Mr. Shulman. The 5-year term that you received is, in fact, statutory. Isn't that correct?
The term is statutory.
So you're appointed by a president to be a nonpartisan, effectively, because you're a term appointee. So by definition, you and the president and the Senate come to an agreement on somebody who will normally transcend at least their one term, or always transcend at least one of their terms, correct? The requirement for your position is management skills, isn't it? In other words, this is not just any political hack kind of a deal. This is one in which you're supposed to possess management administrative skills. That's how you're chosen in an agency that only gets 2 political appointees, one who's the commissioner and the other who is the consul to the commissioner, as I understand it. So you have 1 lawyer and 1 manager. Am I just setting the tone correctly for the record?
Generally, the goal is to have a commissioner who has a 5-year term to run the agency.
Were you selected, in your opinion, because of your management skills?
Yeah, yes, in my opinion.
Okay, that was what I was trying to get to for the record.